Welcome back to Delta Waterfowl's The Voice of the Duck Hunter podcast. I'm your host, Joel Brice, and in this episode, I'm joined by someone who has almost celebrity status in retriever training circles, Barton Ramsey. Barton is a Team Eukanuba pro, the owner of Southern Oak Kennels, and one of North America's leading authorities on training, breeding, and importing British Labradors. You may also know Barton as a co-founder of the Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, a popular online course that helps do-it-yourselfers train their own dogs. So without further ado, here is a fascinating discussion recorded in July during Delta's Duck Hunters Expo in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Barton Ramsey, Kyle Winterstein, welcome to the Delta Waterfowl podcast.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be with you guys.
Good to be here.
Kyle, we've worked together for a while. First-time guest?
First-time guest with Barton Ramsey on the show, and being a dog guy myself, although not on his level, I couldn't help but jump in this one.
No, I'm glad you took me up on the invite. So it's Kyle said that you're a really big deal.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think that's really just sort of that's been the joke with my friends. When we walked here, we passed Raggio, who was a dear friend, fellow Mississippian, and he whispered across the aisle, "Hey, I need an autograph." And I think it's just the joke, because what does it mean to be a big deal in in the world of gun dogs? I mean, that's a relatively small world. Everybody knows everybody. You know, it's a very tiny. You know, I don't get recognized in the airport.
Sure,
I don't.
Sure.
But in the world of dogs, I guess because of social media, people have learned the name Southern Oak, I guess, in various ways, whether positive or negative. Yeah.
Wasn't that it is amazing, actually, right? The way the internet, social media, it just allows you to be successful no matter where you are on this planet, frankly, as long as you have a good product.
Yeah, the product part's important, because there are a lot of people who, not necessarily even in the dog world, just in general, who will pop up quickly and have a quick rise on social media, but if the product doesn't back it up, you're not going to have longevity at all. I got into this whole thing. I'm 37 years old. I remember in the 5th, 6th grade, we got a computer with dial-up, and I had a AOL Instant Messenger account, and I think I got MySpace when it first came out. I grew up, social media is just what you do. So it was never like if I'm going to have a business, I guess I better learn the Facebook thing. It was like, oh yeah, well, first thing I'm going to do is just go talk about it on social media. I've been doing that since I was 11. So for my age, that was a very natural transition. Again, the longevity part, doing it for a dozen years, is just, you have to have the product. You have to be able to back it up.
Very good. Very good. Let's get to know you. Well, actually, Kyle, for the listener, maybe you're one of Delta's best kept secrets, perhaps. But how long have you been working with Delta?
Yeah, I try to fly under the radar a little bit.
It's better to be. Sometimes one of my coworkers says it's good to be the man standing next to the man. So I try to live by that one too. So how long have you been with Delta?
It's been since 2015, so gosh, going on 10 years now. Been with Delta, and my main assignment has been the magazine. I'm now the editor of Delta Waterfowl magazine, and I love what I do.
Well, we love having you. So for the listener, you see that magazine come out, Kyle's the man. but he has a great team of writers: Bill Miller, Paul Waite, Christy. Yep.
Yeah.
That's good. It's really good. Okay, shifting over. Barton, I was expecting an accent, at least compared to where I'm from. But
yeah, I was born and raised in the deep South in Mississippi. Never had an accent. My sister doesn't either. My parents really don't have much of an accent. My wife is Texan, and she has a very strong Texas drawl. Yeah. So she's like Sprite is Sprat. But I've never tried to force it or fake it, but I'm around it. Our nanny at the house, I need a translator half the time.
Really? Yeah.
You can't understand her Southern accent's so strong, but yeah, I don't really have one.
So you travel well then?
I try. Yeah.
You have to. Yeah. It's good. So if you don't know Barton Ramsey, you already heard the introduction, on the front end of this podcast episode, but founder of Southern Oak Kennels, co-founder of Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, an online video series for DIY gun dog trainers, right?
That's right.
Got all that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but there's more to that onion. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell us about, go all the way back to your upbringing. Or do you come from a hunting family? Do you come from a dog training family?
I come from a family that loved the great indoors, and no one in my family hunted that I was aware of. We weren't against it by any stretch. Just it was not what we were into. I grew up playing guitar, riding motocross when I was in high school, and BMX. Like I was really kind of a skater kid, and played music for a while after high school in a heavy rock band, and toured around, and then ended up going to seminary and was in discipleship ministry in like the Southern Baptist denomination when all this started. And by chance, when I was younger, a good family friend had some Springer Spaniels, and our family dog had passed away, and it was up to me to choose the next family dog. I was the one guy in our family. I was obsessed with dogs. I loved training them to do parlor tricks and just love dogs. And I said I want a Springer Spaniel, and ended up somehow buying a field bred high pedigree Springer from a guy named Jeff English, who now we've done some work together. He's up in the Northeast. I don't know if y'all know Jeff or not, but still does Springers. And I bought this Springer from him. This would have been in 2002. And she fetched Frisbees. She was just a Frisbees and sticks. And I worked in the church, and a guy in my church one Sunday afternoon was like, "Hey, duck season's opening up this coming weekend. You want to go duck hunt?" I've never been duck hunting in my life. I was like, what is that like? And you got to imagine I have pretty long hair, gauged earrings, and very skinny jeans, and a lot of tattoos. So I do not look like the guy that you invite to go duck hunting. And this guy, he did some work for me recently, and we were talking, and I was like, if it hadn't been for that invite, I don't think any of this would have started. So he took me duck hunting. At the end of what was going to be a skunk, I shot a hen ringneck at like 60. And this guy that lived in the neighborhood behind where we were hunting he also had permission. He joined with us. He had a very nice, now I know, HRCH black Labrador female. And I shot that bird, and he sent her on a retrieve, and I was like, this is super cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was the coolest thing ever, like a video game. And so the next few times this guy invited me, I was obviously getting the bug, right? And we went, and a guy brought a golden retriever, and she was a train wreck, just didn't know what she was doing at all. And the next time he invited me to go hunt some catfish ponds that were apparently, the guy that owned the ponds, he called and he was upset because a lot of hooded mergansers were eating his minnows and wanted us to come take care of them. At this point in time, I have no idea what a limit was, and I won't say how many hooded mergansers were shot on the catfish pond, but I asked if I could bring my Springer, which in hindsight is a terrible idea. This dog had no intro to gunfire, like never seen a bird. And I was like, well, she's bred for it. I was that idiot. I brought my dog out there. It could have been a train wreck. Man, the guy across from me shot a merganser, and it sailed over to my side, and it was dead. And I sent her, and she got it. And man, I hunted with her the rest of her life. Got another Springer. Yeah, that was the start of the journey. So really was through Springers and a guy in my church thinking, I bet this dude would enjoy duck hunting, even though he doesn't look like it.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, for me, I've said this before, it would have been weird for me not to be a hunter. I my grandfather, my dad, my brothers, my kids, love to go hunting, but I do admire, people that didn't have that background. But I always say this, I think every single person on this earth has a hunter inside of them. But for some people, it'll take maybe a day away from starvation to bring it out, right? But everybody, so we all have it. It's just whether or not we answer that call or it's strong enough. So,
Sure.
So that's awesome that you had that in your life, and look at this great career that you've made for yourself. And
well, for me, it's a big like encouragement to people to invite someone hunting and take them hunting. And this guy really did a lot for me. His name was Kelly Harmon. Shout out to Kelly. And he took me to get a license. He took me to, he let me borrow a shotgun. He took me to get some waders. He showed me everything. He said, don't worry about shells. I've got you. Like, he really got me into it, held me by the hand, and took me into the sport. And, duck hunting numbers, there's a lot of discussion on how many people are duck hunting and decline in duck stamp purchases and whatnot. I don't think we can have enough children to change the trajectory. I think we're going to have to invite people into this world and show them, hey, this is a great way to spend time, and then they can get their kids into it and invite someone. So I was super encouraged that he invited a guy that, you probably wouldn't have picked out of a lineup to be the next duck hunter, much less the next guy that owns a British Labrador Retriever kennel.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, that is not the story of most pros.
No.
And most pros work their entire life at this and don't gain the respect and the attention that you have in a short time. I personally didn't even realize that your story began when it did. But when was there a moment when someone else recognized or you recognized that you just have a way with dogs, that connection that you can read the dog can read you? Because
Yeah. Well, that's a great segue. Honestly, I think most people, or a lot of people, could be really good dog trainers, right? With the right training. There is definitely an element of being able to naturally just read dogs. I think you can learn it, right? And I think some of it you're around some people and it's just obviously a talent, like a given gift. Um, for me, I sent my second Springer to a pro trainer named Mark Harefield. Do you know Mark? So
Yeah.
Mark, he was my first episode of my podcast. He was my all-time mentor. He is hard as nails. Happy anniversary, Mark. 'Cause I think yesterday was his anniversary, and I'm the same age as Mark's son, who had moved off. He's the same age as my dad, and he was really my like father figure in the hunting world. He took me to field trials. He had me down on Saturdays, corrected all of my shooting. I remember a pheasant flew and I missed it twice with his 20 gauge over and under, and he looked at me and said, "What the hell was that?" I said, "What you aiming at?" And I was like, "What am I supposed to be doing?" And he's like, "Your feet, man." He goes over and like moves my body, and he's like, "You're doing everything wrong." He's the one that helped me realize I'm left eye dominant, right-handed. I should have learned to shoot left-handed, so I have to close my left eye. So he helped me with all that and just taught me to train. So to help me pay for the training, I was pretty broke at the time. He would have me out on Saturdays. I would plant pheasants. I would shoot pheasants. I would throw marks for the retrievers, and then he would let me handle a dog. And then he would, he recognized at some point I knew what I was doing, so he sent me home with 2 spaniels and said, "Hey, I want basic obedience. I want steadiness. I want delivery to hand."
Wow.
And I was like, "Man, thank you. That's awesome." So through that, he had some really nice imported British Labrador lines, and I never really liked Labradors up till this point. And I was like, these are a little smaller, a little less rambunctious, but they had big drive and big water entry. He likes a very athletic dog. He's a Springer guy, and so I said, "Hey, if you ever breed these 2, I'd like a pup or 2." And so I ended up with 2 of those pups to train and sell. My goal was to train them up, sell them, side hustle. That'd be fun. I'd been training dogs with him for about a year and a half. And one of them I sold. One of them, she was so nice. Mark even was like, you can't sell that dog. That's your once in a lifetime dog." I was like, "All right, fine." It's a little early in the game for that, but she became sort of the matriarch of the kennel. So her name's Maggie. She's still here. She's 14. So she was the dog that started it all. I trained her, hunted with her. He taught me about health test. He let me use one of his stud dogs that I later ended up purchasing, and just sort of held my hand through the whole thing. And I got about 5 years in, and Mark retired and moved to Texas. So yeah, he was the one that really took me under his wing and showed me the rope.
So that, I guess that's the dog breeding part of your livelihood, right? You have a kennel.
Yeah, so I have the kennel, and we do breed, and then I used to train a lot of client dogs, 15, 16, 17 at a time, and then I realized I cannot successfully run this business if I'm also in the field that many hours of the day, which that was something I talked to Mark about extensively because he always had a string of 12 dogs and he was always just so strapped for time. And I was having children and wanting to spend more time, and I had a full-time job in the church world too.
Okay.
So I had 0 hours left. I was sleeping 4, 5 hours a night, kind of miserable. So then I started bringing in some guys to train with me, and then we started branching out. And we can get into that if you want, but Southern Oak has 8 locations
No kidding.
around the country. So yeah, we kind of figured out a way to organically grow it, and I really kind of run the business side of it and train my dogs for fun now, which is cool. I'll take like 1 or 2 client dogs a year just to keep myself sharp.
So when you say you have 8,
Mm-hmm.
8 kennels,
That's right.
what's that a kennel?
So they're all different. We call them outposts. like we'll give you Flint Hills is in Wichita, Kansas. It's run by a buddy I met in England who's from Wichita named Noah Parsons. He has 4 mama dogs, 4 brood bitches there. All hunt with him. He guides with Salt Plains Outfitters as well. So all those girls are trained. And he has 2 stud dogs imported, and then at any given time he'll have between 4 and 12 client dogs in training.
Okay.
That's
So each one of those locations
does it all.
is kind of tailored to whoever is
Right.
in charge
So like
of that.
Miles, I was trying to bring Miles with me. Miles is in Madisonville, Kentucky. Miles is a physician's assistant at an orthopedic clinic, so he has a full-time career. So he has 2, maybe 3 mama dogs at a time, 2, maybe 3 litters a year, and trains like 2 to 4 client dogs,
Okay.
which is what like we would consider just a hobbyist.
Mhm.
And he was a client of mine that became a very good friend, hunted with us, trained with us. We saw the quality in his training and said, hey, man, here's an opportunity for you to be a part of the team.
Gotcha.
And all of the locations are organic like that.
Mhm.
They all are from a buddy. No one comes to Southern Oak and says, hey, I'd like to open up. Well, actually, people ask all the time, I'd like to open up one of your kennels. And we don't do that. It's all friends. We're all one big family. We all hunt together, train together, have the same philosophy. So, yeah.
That is good. So it's not like McDonald's. You can just go.
Can't just go buy it.
Just go.
But the deal for me was, and this is not a knock on anyone at all, I personally didn't like, I didn't want to be a part of a kennel that had dozens of dogs at one location.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say you can't do that well. There's some guys here who do that, I think, really well. It's just a lot. It's a lot of overhead. You have a lot of moving parts. I come from a background where Mark had his dogs he worked hands-on, and I early on started taking trips to the UK just to learn what do they do over there.
Mhm.
You're not going to find a kennel in the UK with over a dozen dogs. That's pretty rare to see more than 4.
Okay.
So I liked that feel where I can personally tell you what's going on with every dog under my care.
Gotcha.
And so with Southern Oak, we've tried to kind of build it that way,
Mhm.
where the most dogs you're going to see at one kennel would be like maybe 20. Now it's okay. Great Lakes in Michigan, they have a separate training business where they have 2 more pro trainers that train like any dog for the public.
Gotcha.
Gun dog work. So that one's a little larger, but for the most part, it's pretty like family run kennel.
Gotcha. I do want to spend some time just kind of unboxing the I guess the contrast of an American lab and a British lab.
This is where I get in trouble. No.
Well, you know what? This is I call these just kind of these are just conversations, right?
Sure.
So we can go wherever we want. It's just we just try to keep it clean.
It's just us talking.
No, it's fine. I was just messing.
No, I have a British lab myself. He's 12 and he's doing great. So hoping to get a few more years with him. But so I'll just tell you. So my background. So I had an American lab, amazing animal, and he passed. I traveled a lot for my job. I had horses, 2 tiny little kids, and we took 3 years off from having a dog. My wife loves dogs. She loves animals, but like that whole thing with me traveling so much, I was like, it wasn't the right time to bring a puppy in.
Sure.
Kids got a little bit older, and I said, okay, now it's time. You bring in a dog into your family. If it's a good dog, you're going to keep it. If it's a bad dog, you're going to keep it, right? Because you fall in love with it.
That's right.
And so I really started digging and work with a few guys that have British labs, and I started reading, and I thought, I think this is the way I want to go, because as I understand it, it's chaos. Like one of the premises behind the training and breeding of a British lab is calm under chaos.
Mm.
Is that
Yes.
Is that a way to? Yeah. And so I was like, okay. So I think and just looking at all the attributes, I think I'm going to do this. So I invested in a dog, and one thing that was kind of funny was the very first hunt that I took him on. He had energy, young guy, but I put him there, and as soon as I shot for the first time, I watched this calm come over him. Where my previous dog, when the gun went off, he'd go berserk. But I saw this, I was like, is this just him, or is this an attribute of breeding? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. And to quote the current Democratic president nominee Kamala Harris, I like Venn diagrams.
Mm-hmm.
In the Venn diagram of British and American Labradors, there's a massive amount of overlap. The middle circle has a ton.
Sure.
Right. And you'll find a lot of exceptions to the rule. So I like to preface it with that, because when you say things like British Labs are this and American Labs are that, I've seen a lot of people have a dog that's very American, but its mannerisms and behavior characteristics are very British, right? So
Okay.
I think that in general, though, you just have to follow the pedigrees. So you have to ask, when we're talking about well-bred dogs, we're not just talking about any old Labrador that just happens to be born in America or England.
Right.
We're talking about dogs that have letters on their pedigree. The question you have to ask is, what did those dogs have to do to earn those titles? And this is why even within American dogs, a title that's full of HRCH or even Grand Hunt Retriever Champion Master National dogs is still a very different dog than an FCAFC bred dog, because of what it takes to earn those titles.
Mhm.
In the United Kingdom, field trials are, as I'm sure you're aware of, it's a real hunt. You're shooting actual birds, very much like spaniel trials here, but most of the time they're wild birds, or at least they're not just put out the day before. So, over there, the system of evaluation, in my opinion, is very different. And for me, it's very beneficial for what I want in a dog. So over there, calmness at the line, absolute steadiness, no noise at all, hunting an area on its own. They would far
Okay.
rather see a dog just shred up some cover than see you put the dog on the bird immediately, right? They want to see
Gotcha.
the tail action. They want to see the dog using the wind. They want to see marking ability, but not really beyond one mark. They're very rarely going to have two retrieves in a row over there. So, but in a real duck hunting scenario, you might have a dog that marks a good double. After that, let's be honest. I mean,
Sure.
shooting real ducks, they're all coming down at the same time.
Yeah.
You're running blinds. So, for me, when I noticed their system of evaluation, I was like, oh, this is all the things that I want in a dog. So I'm going to gravitate toward these dogs. And it was never in my journey looking at American dogs and saying, well, I don't like those. I could care less, truthfully. And I think you could take some American dogs over to the UK and do really well in trials, and some you'd be put out for noise, right? And it's not all of them are fit the generalization. So the calm and the chaos is the right word, because the response you see from a lot of people that don't like British dogs, or that just try to say there's really no difference, it's all a marketing ploy, and they'll take a picture of their dog taking a nap and they'll say, see, my dog has an off switch. Every dog sleeps, right? Every dog chills. Every dog can turn it off. The question is, what do they do when duck calls are blowing, when guns are going off, when birds are flying in? Do they have an off switch then? That's the real question.
Right.
And so, like you said, if you have a dog where birds are circling the trees and the dog won't shut up, that's a problem. And that's a dog no one really wants to be around. Unfortunately, in the US right now, that's a dog that's often bred, because in the system of evaluation, you walk up to a bucket and you shoot 3 shots, 3 birds come out. They can make a little noise, but they're only at the line for what? Less than 2 minutes, right? I mean, you're just
Gotcha.
boom, 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 off the line. Thank you. Shake the judge's hand, maybe an honor bucket for 1 retrieve, right? And that's only to watch the dog leave. Once the dog, the go dog, the working dog leaves, the honor bucket dog, off you go. So in the UK, I walked a trial last year. We walked for 40 minutes and didn't shoot a bird. 40 minutes on the grouse moors. So if you were the guy in line right there, if your dog got ahead of you at heel and you were too loud correcting it, you're out.
Really?
Yeah, it's a lot of control.
So it's a lot of that it breeds the calmness
Correct.
into.
Yeah. And you have exceptions. The one sitting behind me right now that's standing, he's listening to these duck calls. Hey, sit. He's a very hot British dog. He's here in the U.S. because he's hot. His name's Rio. And the guy that sold him to me is a very good friend. He was super honest. He said, I just can't run him in a driven shoot. I could run him in walk up. In a driven shoot, he's going to lose his mind. He's just got a lot. The one behind him is a field trial champion who's got 8 field trial wins. He's calm as a cucumber. You can see him. He'll lay there all day. So they're all different. Even with those two, you have 2 very different personalities, very different drive. But the one behind me still, who's got a lot of drive, you'll never hear him make a noise. He's
That's
super
cool.
quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, we have 2 of Barton's dogs here right behind us, and there's a lot of duck call noise, and I think they're confused.
Well, Ozzy thinks that everyone is here to love on him. He thinks that he's literally God's gift to all mankind. So he will just walk around this whole place leaning on people. Now, he loves to work, but when we're in a crowd, he'll work the crowd. Rio wants to work. So when we walked in and people started blowing duck calls, you could tell he's like, where are the birds? Where are the birds, balls?
He is actually looking up. He looks up.
Yeah, that's my timber dog. He's He's
Yeah.
he's the one I hunt with in the woods all the time. So he knows when they start working. You're not gonna see any ducks in here, buddy.
And how many hours did you say it's been since you've had a chance to really air them?
Oh,
As
I
they just
aired
sit
them on the
there?
way here. It was like 4 hours ago, and it was a quick one. And yeah, it rained so much on the way down, so they haven't really gotten to run around a ton today. They need it.
My springers would not be sitting in their place right now if they did cooped up like that.
You guys make me feel like I'm at my wife's high school reunion or something like that. You guys were name dropping people. This is a joke. You were name dropping people that I'm like, and you're like, oh yeah, I know that guy, and I'm like, I don't know who that is, and
Well,
then
as
aired.
small as the Labrador world is, the Springer Spaniel world is
Yeah.
much smaller.
Yeah.
I too have gotten the Mark Harefield shooting
Yeah.
shakedown.
Yeah.
Shooting an open form.
At one point, he was, I think, like the AKC. He was one of their like gun enforcers. Like he had to certify you to shoot at AKC trials. So yeah, Mark's he's I've told him this to his face, and I'm the opposite of this. But you know he's my wife used to say Mark spends too much time talking to dogs and not enough time talking to people. And so when he talks to you, it's like, no, don't do it like that. What are you doing? You know, and you're like, no, there is no sugarcoating anything. It's one word. No, here.
That's actually refreshing. You don't have to read between the lines, right?
Yeah,
He's very consistent.
yeah, absolutely.
You know the expectations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's. Oh, I have this one question. So, how accessible are your dogs? Like someone says, I want to get one of your dogs.
Oh man,
Is it, the waiting list is.
I'll take one for the team. All of us here who are breeders. So pre-COVID, that was 10 to 12 months for one of our pups. During COVID, it was insane. Everyone and their grandma wanted a dog. We were turning tons of people away. Hey, you live in a condo in Chicago. You can't have a Labrador, you know, and everyone's working from home, right? So they wanted dogs, which is a whole different conversation with Cornerstone. After COVID, I know all of us have seen a massive drop in demand.
Okay.
I think there's a lot to that. And speculation on my end here. And I've seen this cross industry for lots of people, lots of my friends in the industry. I think one thing is so many people that thought they might get a puppy in the next however many years got one during the pandemic.
Makes sense.
I think that a lot of puppies were sold. You'll hear breeders, like I did a podcast recently with Bob Owens, and he was like, I wish I had 1 million puppies during COVID. And I was like, yeah, dude, it was insane. I mean, it was wild. And then now I think in our current economic state and political state, I think people are a little less likely to spend fun money right now on something they don't have to have.
Sure.
So I've seen the effects of both of those. That said, typically with us, 3 to 6, 7 months for a pup.
That's not bad.
If I have a litter we sell usually 3 and 3 boy and 3 girl deposits on litters that are on the way. And if I have a litter of 9 or 10, then I'll have definitely some pups available like within 8 weeks, right? If I have a small litter, then we're moving, shuffling. So
cool.
Which honestly, I don't mind. I hated telling people it's going to be 2 years. You know,
it's hard.
It's nicer now to say, hey, actually, you want. But this has been a weird year. Everyone, at least 80% of our puppy applications this year are for a black male. It's killing me. And every litter I have is 2 black males. I just had one, 2 black males, 7 females. Or a mixed litter, 3 yellow males, 5 black females. Like it's just keeps on. I'm like, I need some black males over here. It's weird, but that really is like a constant changing thing. The pendulum will swing back the other way at some point,
Trends.
but for now the trend is black males. So
you get that many people with a color preference rather than going in.
I do
for the best dog.
do. I love it when people call me and they say I'm pretty open. I'd like a female. I'm open on color. Here's what I want. You know, I want smaller size. I want a lot of drive. I want really calm. I love it when people call with that. But yeah, surprisingly, but like, listen, Kyle, in this day and age, they're still at least asking for a Labrador and not a doodle, you know? So the designer breed thing is a real deal here. And you can't, you know, I have Cornerstone too. And we have so many people who's like, hey, I wanted a lab, but my wife made me get a golden doodle. So can I train that to be a duck dog sort of thing? So if they're picky on a color, that's okay. At least they're still getting a well-bred Labrador from field-bred lines that are health tested.
See, the reality of it though, and we have these conversations around the office. One of my coworkers has had a black lab as long as I've known him. He's switching to yellow, but it was a huge decision, not because black or yellow is better. It was because all of his upholstery, all of his clothes were designed to hide the black hair. Now here comes the yellow, right? So I don't know.
We have it happen. You have people like that who just say, I've always had and will always have a black dog or a yellow dog. We weathered the storm through the dark fox red phase, dark yellow. We do have some fox red dogs, and that's fine. But there was a definite period of time, especially pre-COVID, where people were like, I want a fox red Labrador. And I was like, well, you can't just make that. You can try, but if your whole focus is making that, you're probably not focusing on the right things. So
Yeah, that is the tricky part of trends, right?
yes.
To make it, odds are you're gonna sacrifice.
Well, I think that's exactly what happened with chocolate dogs in America in the 90s and early 2000s. It's not easy to make chocolate dogs, right? You can't just have a chocolate line. So I think it became a color trend and everybody focused on color. And that's why in the early 2000s, everybody's like, why are chocolate dogs so stupid? Well, I think people have done the right thing and getting a lot of those lines back on track for sure.
Right.
But to make chocolate dogs, you have to be kind of intentional about breeding chocolate dogs because it's it's recessive and they have to carry black. So
Right.
Anyway, that's my spiel on chocolate dogs.
Yeah, that is tricky though, for sure. So to me, I look at a guy like yourself who breeds dogs, has training in the background. I think attaching a DIY, here's how you train your own dog. That I have not seen that before.
Sure.
So I'd love for you to switch gears a little bit and talk about the Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. Tell us about that. What was the inspiration? What is it?
I don't think we were. Obviously, we weren't the first ones to have a training program by any stretch. I think we were definitely the first ones to put it online and make it accessible. And then for us, it was not a hunt test focused at all. It was 100% gun dog focused, and we did that very intentional. We wanted average Joe. This is my first ever dog. I have no clue what I'm doing. I don't know what a blind retrieve is. Right? We wanted that guy. It was a partnership with some guys that had bought a couple puppies from me and had bought every training resource known to man trying to just figure this game out. And they were like, there's so many holes. And so they approached me and said, hey, would you be interested in partnering and building something that doesn't have as many holes? Can we put it online? And I was like, yeah, everyone would pick up their dog and say, do you have any DVDs you recommend? Well, the only DVD player I had was in my wife's Suburban. I don't even have a DVD player. We stream everything, right? This is 2015, 16.
Mm-hmm.
So when those guys called, I said, "This is a great idea. Let's film it." So we filmed the complete Gun Dog Academy first. That's mostly me, some of Josh Parvin, and his dad is our other business partner, Keith Parvin, and it was essentially what you would expect: basic obedience, intermediate obedience, basic, intermediate, and advanced gun dog. Plus, we did things like how your dog learns, which I'm going to cover some here on the duck dog stage, but like learning theory, helping people understand not just what your dog do, but why in the world did they do it. That's what Mark Harefield would drill into my head. Like, you're focusing on what the dog's doing and not even thinking about why the dog is doing it. But you can't read dogs unless you start asking those correct questions. So we launched over 180 videos or so when we initially launched in 2017. And if I could go back, I would change so many things. But at that point, there was no online curriculum like this. There weren't online courses like there are now. A couple years later, Josh filmed himself walking through the complete Gun Dog Academy with his own kind of flair to it, with a dog named Violet, and it's a little over a year, and we called it 52 plus, and that is as thorough as it gets. It's weekly, probably 4 or 5 videos a week, plus a weekly check-in, plus a weekly evaluation, plus a quiz to make sure you're ready to move on to the next week, plus a lesson planner for over a year. It dominated his life, right? And so that's our sort of all-inclusive, and we really have 2 kind of categories that we focus on. We focus on huntable retriever and complete retriever. The words that get thrown around, if I asked you what level dog, you're probably going to use terms like finished, seasoned, they're started. That's a big one. What is a started dog? If I go ask 20 people in here, what's a started dog? The 20 different answers, right?
Yeah.
The term you used before we started recording, meat dog, right? So many people, that's kind of what they want. Well, what do you mean by meat dog? Because I've hunted with some dogs that were not steady. They didn't mark. You had to throw a shotgun shell in the water to get them to go see the duck, right? Well, they'd call it just a meat dog. every dog can do better than that. Even the worst of breedings, you can get them further than that,
Yeah.
right? So for us, it's like, hey, do you want a huntable retriever? That's going to be a dog that's really still going to very much impress your friends, right? It's going to be steady. It's going to deliver to hand. That's a big one for us. It's going to mark. It's going to take decently straight lines out. It's not going to run blind retrieves, right? That's what people call 2.0 or collegiate level stuff for dogs. But for a huntable dog, you at least want a dog that's going to, for us, enhance the hunt.
Yeah.
As opposed to a dog that's like, please don't bring that one back, right?
Mhm.
So we have a huntable retriever course that's 28 weeks long. When you finish that, it's like, hey, you got a dog you can take out. If you've thoroughly walked through this and you can hunt, it's not going to embarrass you in front of your buddies, as long as you're consistent. And then we have the complete, which is 52 plus my complete Gun Dog Academy, and it's everything. I mean, if you walk all the way through that, you're at a high level. And we really focus on those two lines because people are asking the question like, hey, what's out there that can help me get my dog where I imagine my dog to be?
Mhm.
And that we want to break that down and make it as simple as possible for people.
Well, training dogs teaches you how to train the next one, right?
Without a doubt.
But when they live, hopefully 10, 12, 15 years, whatever it could be, you might only train a couple, 3, 4 dogs in your life.
That's
and
right.
You're great at the last one, but let's be great in the first one,
You
right?
can make some mistakes with that first one for sure. And this is what I have to tell my guys, like Stone, my cousin who runs my Texas outpost. He's a good dog trainer. He lived with me for 2 years and mentored under me. And he can get kind of frustrated with clients who will send videos, and you watch a client trying to run the dog that you just spent 6 months training professionally, and you're like, "Phew, that's rough, and did you not pay attention to anything, or did you not, like, a lot of people think there's a contradiction between me having pro trainers on staff and having Cornerstone, and I'm like,
Mhm.
not at all, because these people still have to maintain their dogs.
Yeah.
It's great. We can say, hey, go buy this program and just run through. Your dog knows all the stuff. Just go do the videos. You don't even have to teach it. Just go do it. So, but I told Stone, I said, you run 14 to 16 dogs a day. So you get 16 looks
Yeah.
at all these drills. This guy is not going to get that much experience in 2 months.
Right.
Right. And you're doing it every day,
Mhm.
5-6 days a week. So you're fast tracking, right? You're learning, and you do that for 2 years. And then you're like, oh, you know some stuff. You know how to anticipate what a dog's going to do. When you blow the whistle and you see him take a few extra steps, you know what that means. This guy's very limited on the hours, and that's not his fault at all. But again, through Cornerstone, we want to teach people how to read their dog. And like what I'm going to talk about here this weekend, to break down the training process as simply as possible and say, hey, because I think the number one problem people have with dog training is that they're asking their dog to do things that the dog has not been taught to do. I think that's the number one problem. The dog's confused. And then they think, well, my dog's just bad. My dog's too hyper. My dog's too driven. No, you just haven't taught the dog to do what you're asking it to do yet. And that's because you haven't broken it down as simply as possible. I mean, you take running a blind retrieve. The dog has to sit steady. The dog has to understand what being lined up is, take a straight line, understand stopping on the whistle and looking for you, understand casting directions, understand using the wind to pick the bird up, and understand delivery to hand. That's a lot of steps, right? If you haven't taught each of those steps individually, your dog's going to crumble when you start. When you think, oh, it knows whistle sits, we're running blinds. Well, you send it on a line, it takes a hard left, all that stuff is we want to break it down as simply as possible. And that's what we do inside Cornerstone. Just make it like, honestly, retriever training for dummies. It's like, hey, if you've never heard the lingo, because that's what happened, honestly, is myself, especially Josh, he was young. You get on Facebook, you get on some of the threads, no offense to anyone, but you start asking questions and you immediately just get 2 responses. Number 1, go force fetch your dog. Number 2, you're an idiot, right? I mean, the advice is all over the place, and it's like, no, we need something better than that. We need better answers.
That's great. So when someone purchases the program, or do they have interaction with you guys?
Yeah. So a couple routes. When you purchase the program, you have your library online and on the app, which is on iPhone and Android and all the other whatever else is out there. And your library is sort of always like, if we update and add new videos, it automatically updates into your app. And then we have a private members only Facebook group. There's several actually guys I've run into here already who are super active in there, and that's a great. Josh and I will get in there and comment, and I posted in there yesterday, hey, I'll be at Delta, come say hey. that's a great spot where someone will upload a video. Hey, this is what I'm dealing with.
Gotcha.
You can comment on the videos inside the app for sure, but if you want us to see it, the group is amazing because
Nice.
you'll comment and before I can even log in, you'll have 12 guys like, yeah, my dog did that too. Josh and Barton told me to do this. This is what worked. Don't do this, and it's great. You'll see, and it's awesome for us because we're like, hey, these guys are truly getting it, right? Like these 3 comments, those dudes used to have no clue what they were doing,
Hmm.
and now they're 2 dogs in, and they're helping this guy out. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. We also do live coaching Zoom calls, and the schedule changes with those. So we'll hop on and do like a foundations Zoom or an advanced Zoom, and anyone in the group is able to hop on Zoom and ask questions with us.
Nice.
Yeah,
That is great. Yeah, because it can be lonely otherwise.
for
Duck,
sure,
duck hunting is something that requires, I think, mentorship.
without a doubt.
To learn at least to learn it quickly and to the point where you could stay on yourself and dog training. Yeah, you can do it yourself, but to have a resource and to have people like yourself to talk to,
Yeah,
that's vital.
we have a map inside the app too, and in the Facebook group to show where our members, if they want people to know where they are,
Oh,
so they can look up their city and say, hey, there's 4 other guys using Cornerstone in my zip code, and we have a lot of people that get together and do like member training groups,
cool.
which is really fun. Which the hunt test game is awesome at that. HRC's got training groups all over the place, and those can be a little intimidating if you're a new trainer because you're just kind of expected to walk up to the line and run the setup, right? Which no, I mean I've been to some training groups where the people were incredibly hospitable, like
Mhm.
just unreal nice, and nothing against that or hunt tests at all. Most of my SOK guys run a bunch of hunt tests, so we're not anti by any stretch. But for the Cornerstone guys, it's a good spot. I don't want to say safe spot because we're not.
Mhm.
It's not like there's any danger involved, but just a comfortable spot to go find some friends to go train with.
To be vulnerable,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
To say, can I show up and not be embarrassed when my dog just absolutely crumbles?
There you go. There you go.
It's gonna
Well, that's
happen.
awesome. That was a really thorough overview. We did wander into, kind of the learning, about the background of British Labs. So I appreciate that. Learned a lot about Southern Oak and Cornerstone. So where do they find all of your materials?
So we're on social. Southern Oak Kennels on Instagram and Facebook, southernoakkennels.com. And if you want to contact us, there's a contact form on the website, which will lead you to like it. If you say, hey, I want to visit, or I'm interested in purchasing a puppy, I'm interested in whatever it is, using one of our stud dogs. And then for Cornerstone, it's cornerstonegundogacademy.com, Cornerstone Gun Dogs on Instagram and Facebook. And you can DM those accounts, and Josh or myself or one of the team will get back to you as soon
Nice.
as possible. Yeah.
Anything burning inside your head, Kyle, that we need to talk about? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious. You've mentioned the Eukanuba duck hunter stage,
Yeah.
or duck dog stage, excuse me, that you'll be having presentations here at the Delta Expo at. How did you and Eukanuba?
Oh, that's a great question.
Get together?
So we've got time. I'm not in a hurry. So those guys reached out. I don't want to get the timeline messed up, but I want to say 5 years ago. It was after the purchase of Eukanuba from the Mars company, from essentially underneath Royal Canin as kind of a parent company for them, and a total overhaul of the food, of the quality control. My experience with Eukanuba 12 years ago was horrific, and I was like, I'm never feeding this food again. And they reached out and they're like, hey, listen, we've changed, just give it a try. And I was sold pretty quickly. It was really nice food. And then they reached out and asked us to help with their new performance formulas. So we tested the food with them in a brown bag and ran our dogs on it, and the results were, I can't exaggerate, they were just phenomenal. Coats were phenomenal. I was blowing a lot less hair out of my kennels, cleaning up a lot less stool out of the kennels. Just the results you want, right? The what you want is not a lot of shedding, a lot of energy, and healthy stools. I mean, you can't ask for more with Labradors, and you want to be able to keep weight on your active dogs. And so we started working with Eukanuba pretty regularly, and then they announced that they were doing the new puppy food a couple years ago, the Premium Performance Puppy Pro. And man, we tested that. The most difficult part about that was having to pull the dogs off the Puppy Pro because it wasn't available to the public, and put them on the regular Eukanuba puppy, and then send them home because it was like taking them off of eating ribeyes and potatoes and giving them a Big Mac. You know, no offense to the regular puppy, but the Puppy Pro is just the best. It's the best puppy food we've ever used. So nice. I told them last year I was traveling and it was super cold, and I fed all my adults the puppy food throughout that whole cold front in January because it's just never found a better food. So we started working with them, got all of our guys on the team, saw an automatic increase in just the overall health of our coats, like we said, overall body index of our dogs, and then especially just our puppies, just the size of our puppies when they went home. Puppies are hard, you know, keeping solid stool on puppies is not easy. So raising puppies that had, you know, I hate to go on a podcast and talk about poop, but it's a big part of my job. Raising puppies where you could go into a pen and just literally with a glove pick up the poop. You know, that was a whole new deal for us. So it's been a great relationship. They really value strong breeding. They value good training. They want to make all that accessible for people. So it's been a really good fit for Southern Oak to be with them the last 4 or 5 years.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. We're going to be up on the stage and hanging out, talking training, and seeing if anyone can hear us over the duck calls, and it'll be good. It'll be a fun week.
Yeah. Last year, the last 2 years, the podcast studio was out on the floor. Oh, I love duck calling, but I learned that it really was frustrating after a long weekend of recording podcasts with.
It's constant, isn't it? We do the big festival in Stuttgart every Thanksgiving, right after Thanksgiving, where they have World Duck, and we run out the ice house, and that's Main Street duck calling, and the World Championship, and so by the end of it, it's like 5 days of me hearing it in the back of my head, just hail calls.
Door squeaks. It's a duck call,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Well, good deal. Well, thank you very much, Barton, for your time.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. This is super fun, and maybe we'll do it again.
Yeah, we should. We didn't, I think we just scratched the surface, right, Kyle?
I could go 3 more hours.
Yeah, we probably could. We should get you back on. I would imagine on your podcast, which would love for people to check it out. I would imagine you get into tactics and theory and those types of things with specific episodes.
Yeah, my podcast is called The Lab, and it's on Spotify, on Apple. And yeah, I love it because I have all different kinds of trainers on. I have Mark Harefield. I've had Laura Hill from England. I've had Clark Kennington. I've had some high-level field trial guys here in the U.S., and we kind of get in the nitty-gritty. But the biggest thing for me on my podcast is we build bridges. And so I'm all about finding the common ground with those guys and saying, hey, look, people like to pit me against you. Let's figure out how we're really similar here. And it's super fun.
It's got to make for great conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
right on.
No one's hung up the phone on me yet, so we've been able to build bridges on every episode.
Beautiful, awesome. Well, hey, thanks for your time. We'll let you get back to your weekend here.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right, Kyle, thank you as well.